Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. The last night Ukraine used the ATACMS missiles targeting the military infrastructure of the Russian army in occupied Crimea. The KBIMs were mostly reported in Jankoy and also in the main city of Crimea, Simferopol, with Gvardeyska Air Base. It is already the second strike on Crimea by Ukraine using ATACMS. Sadly, but we do not have the images from the eyewitnesses. Russia is very strict against their own citizens or against Ukrainians who live in Crimea if they post the results of the Ukrainian attacks in internet. For this reason, we have to rely on the satellite images. But unfortunately, this time the satellite images are not that good because there were some of the clouds in the area. So this is the Jankoy airfield before on 20th of April and on 30th of April. But here you can see some of the black spots, so it was before and it is right now. Those are the parking spots for the Russian aircraft near the taxiway. And one more big spot appeared on the apron, but it could be the shadow from the cloud. So it is early to say of what actually was targeted there, but Russian side confirmed the attack. However, they do not say anything about their losses or about something that was damaged. What they show is just this image of the air defense missile trace, plus this ball saying that it is the part of the ATACMS missile cluster munition. Well, actually it looks like that with those kind of the ribs which help the munition to fly away further from the missile than it separates at some certain altitude. It just spins, hits the ground and detonates. But what Russia shows us here looks different. Around 1 week ago there was the successful attack by Ukrainian ATACMS on Jankoy airfield. I showed you the video of the evidence plus satellite images, so there could be some of the Russian planes damaged. Also the ammunition warehouse in the airfield was kaboomed. So Ukraine now tries to use ATACMS more. And many experts say that Ukraine might strike the Kerch Bridge connection very soon, in a week or something like that. Because first of all there will be the inauguration of Vladimir Putin and also a great Russian patriotic celebration on 9th of May. So Ukraine could potentially use this strike to disturb first of all the Russian supply lines and after it for propaganda purposes, to demoralize the Russian society and first of all the Russian army. I don't think that Ukraine will strike the Kerch Bridge connection until it gets F-16s, which could also be equipped with some certain missiles able to target this part of the Russian infrastructure. Basically, there should be a combination of ATACMS, drone boats, and other types of missiles like Storm Shadow, Scalp, or even Taurus if someday Ukraine gets those in the army. From what I see, Ukraine uses the variant of the ATACMS missile, a long-range one, but with a cluster munition. At least it was used in Jankoy airfield, and Russia now attacks Ukrainian cities also with the cluster munition. This video I shared on my Telegram channel. This is Odessa city, a residential area, and here you can see lots of the cluster munition. This was the Iskander Russian ballistic missile with those shells. So Ukraine targets the Russian military infrastructure, but Russia targets the Ukrainian cities. You know, I just missed the point in Russian propaganda that before they were saying that we are friends, we are brothers, Russians and Ukrainians, there is no difference between Ukrainians and Russians, and now they say that we should be vanished. And that is what they actually do. Just right now, while I'm recording this video, there was one more attack on Odessa, residential part of it. Right guys, just a short break before we go to the front lines review. I want to tell you many thanks for your support on Patreon because some of my videos were demonetized and I rely on your support. You may find my Patreon in the video description just below, or you may scan the QR code available on the screen. Thank you so much for supporting my daily job. As for the front lines, let's start from the good news because Ukraine was able to counterattack the Russian army in one place near Torsk before Russia tried many times to occupy the settlement. Russians also tried to advance to Yampilivka and Terny, and here for the first time Ukraine struck Russians back. This achievement is important because Russia is very close to Terni, and also they keep the high ground in this area, so for them it's much easier to advance from the geographical perspective, from the terrain perspective, compared to Ukrainian army, which goes uphill in this case. Also, it shows that even though Russia deployed many of the brigades and units in this place, they are not capable for the further advancement. The Russian army is also limited nowadays. They are dispersed. They sent most of their reinforcements to the eastern side of Ukraine, Avdiivka, also Bakhmut, and they also tried to attack on the south in Robotyne direction, plus also the southern part of the Donetsk Oblast. We're gonna review those areas today. So Russians attack in this particular place bogged down, and the Ukraine uses this time to advance and to improve positions, because now Russia would have to deviate from their plan, attacking Terni. Now they need to concentrate on this side threat for their units. So great job in stopping the Russian offense. Plus we have the confirmation about it from the Michael 73. He also mentioned that Ukrainian soldiers went to the place attacking the tree line and taking the territories back. That data is based on the actual image from the place taken by our soldiers from 23rd and 63rd Brigades. This video was published by the Deep State Military Map source on their Telegram channel, and I'll share it on my personal Telegram channel. You might find it with a link in the video description just below. Sorry, according to the YouTube policy, I cannot share it on this platform. But what I can tell you that the counterattack of Ukrainian army was done in combination with infantry forces and also FPV drones. The FPV drones is the most effective tool for Ukrainian army. And now let's go to Avdiivka direction. Guys, I'm telling truth, so I try to tell truth on my channel. That is why I tell you about the situation as it is. If it is bad in Avdiivka direction, I would tell you about it. It's not some sort of the Russian propaganda. No. The truth is our weaponry. We need to tell the things as they are. Yes, I do not share the classified information because mainly also I do not have the access to that one, but I may tell you the public information available. And according to it, the Ukrainian army continued to lose positions in Avdiivka direction near Ocheretine. Kerch was occupied by the Russian army today. Russia continued with their several of the attack vectors. And let's go to the timeline. It was yesterday and it is today. So Russia advances from Kerch already. They go to the north from Ocheretine and they go to the west from Solovyove. Those are their three main attack vectors. The Ukrainian 150th Brigade that lost the positions from the very beginning of the Russian attack, which started to happen on the 11th of April, somewhere in this place, went to this area, and now mostly they are positioned in Arhangelsk village. Russia will continue to attack northbound. From what I can see, they'll occupy Arhangelsk, so probably 115th Brigade will leave this area through this small bridge in the place or via this place. While still they have the way out from this area, it is good. What is not good is the pace of the Russian army. So just in a few days, like 3 days ago, they were over here, and 4 days, they are here. They are definitely breaking Ukrainian defense in this region. We should say about it openly. However, we have just a couple of the statements from the General Commander Syrsky that the situation on the east is difficult, but no one says that Ukraine definitely already lost Ocheretine. Well, a couple of the buildings do not count, and also Ukraine lost Kerch, and there is the threat for the Russian army to go further. Well, not to Pokrovsk, as Russia says, it's still far away, but Russia might be oriented to cut a very important road for Ukrainian army in all of the eastern Ukraine. I'm speaking about the road between Pokrovsk and Bakhmut. It goes like that and used to supply Ukrainian army quite a lot. We may see the same road over here, and we also see that Russia is just a couple of the villages away from it. Let's measure the distance. Here and here is just 9.45 kilometers, so 10 kilometers away. Really nothing. Russia already may disturb the Ukrainian supplies targeting this road from their mortars, from their artillery. So the situation is not good, and Russia knows their goal. They want to cut supplies for Ukraine. That's why they're very close to Novoalexandrovka. The next village is Vozdvizhenka, and the next is this road. The Miko 73 military analytic agrees with that scenario. He shows the possible direction of the Russian further movement. He also thinks that Russia may advance towards the road, but because of those trenches in the area, Russia could bypass them by moving northbound at first and then turn to the west. Also, Russia may take control over this place on the northern side from Ocheretine. Again, guys, it's the worst case scenario, but potentially it could happen because Russia accumulates more forces, and we know that they advertised that they will try to assault with even more reinforcements at the end of the May or beginning of June. This map is from the same military analytic. We see some of the Ukrainian defense lines, but they're not able to cope with the huge Russian assault. So we may state 100% that the first defense line of Ukraine in this area was broken by the Russian assault. Well, there is the other one, but Russians are also very close to that place as well. As we see, those defense lines are not as robust as the Russian defense lines that Russia was able to build on the southern part of Ukraine. For example, this line was just occupied by the Russian army in a single day. And they also took this one and they advanced northbound, so it's difficult situation, really difficult for Ukraine. I haven't seen that fast Russian advancement for a very long time. Again, my friends, I'm telling you the story as it is right now. It's not very positive. However, I still keep the positive attitude in my videos, so this situation is not forever. I want you to understand. Then Ukraine starts to obtain enough weaponry, the Ukrainian army will stop the Russian advancement. It's 100%. The question is when? Probably in a couple of months. Well, Ukraine already obtained some of the weapons, but still it's not enough to stop the Russian army. The army needs to accumulate the resources for defense. So Russia uses this time window to attack with more forces, and they have tremendous, absolutely crazy losses. They're trying to tell in their propaganda that they're winning, but what's the price of the victory? Let me tell you the example of the Russian propaganda. Today there was the video shared in internet from the ex-Ukrainian positions and current Russian positions. So the soldier, Russian one, was walking across the tree line, filming lots of the bodies lying on the ground with some of the weaponry and other stuff. In this video, he didn't say that those were Ukrainians or Russians. He only said that Ukraine prepared the defense in this place with lots of the efforts and it was done correctly. Indeed, Ukraine defended this territory, not letting Russians to break through to Berdichi. I think it was the place where Ukrainian 47th Brigade, very capable one, defended the area. So in this short video, there were more than 80 of the bodies of the soldiers just lying on the ground. But then Russians occupied this area. Ukraine launched a huge strike on them from artillery and from many of the tools, totally demolishing them. We're speaking about the village of Stepove, so even after Russia occupied Avdiivka, they were struggling taking this settlement under control. Yes, finally they moved further, taking Ukrainian positions, but Ukraine caused them severe losses. And now Russian propaganda say that all of those corpses on the video are Ukrainian soldiers. So then Russia took the tree line, they caused those devastations for Ukrainian army loses many more soldiers compared to the Russian one. So if you see something like that on internet, guys, think again, this is bullshit. After watching the video for just 2 of the minutes, I was able to find the evidence that, for example, the weaponry is marked with Russian flags. Or there are some of the boxes from the Russian military food portions lying just near the bodies. And judging on the uniform and rubber boots, 100% that those are the Russian soldiers. So Russia has tremendous losses, but wants to show that those are Ukrainians. It is happening not for the first time. So be careful when you consume the information from the social media, especially from the platforms like X and Facebook, because there are lots of the bots and lots of the Russian propaganda. By the way, speaking about the X platform, here we have new statement from Elon Musk. Whether Russia ultimately takes Odessa is the only remaining question in my opinion. Russia for sure will not rest until all oblasts incorporated into the Russian so-called constitution, Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk and Zaporizhia, are taken. That's their stated policy. Well, here I agree 100% with Elon Musk. Russia is not willing to negotiate in Ukraine. Truly and sincerely, their goal is to occupy at least those regions, after that negotiate about temporary peace, and once again start the massive attack on Ukrainian territory, the remaining part under Ukrainian control. The aim of the Russian FSB regime is to get rid of Ukraine and everything Ukrainian. I honestly believe in that because I listen to Vladimir Putin, I listen to the Russian officials. That is what they state, that's what Putin tried to tell to Tucker Carlson in this long bullshit interview. Then he spoke about the common history between Ukraine and Russia, so-called history from the Putin's perspective. So his idea is to unite Russia and Ukraine under his regime. But this statement about Odessa, Elon Musk, you're wrong, Odessa will not be taken by the Russian army. Well, actually, I don't know what should happen for Russia to occupy that city, really, what should happen to Ukraine or Russia. Because Odessa now, for Russia personally, is the most difficult city to occupy. We're not speaking about the mountainous regions of Ukraine on the far west. No, here we are speaking about the flat terrain. Why is it like that? Well, here is the Odessa city, and Russia, with the current risk for their fleet, Black Sea Marine Fleet, is unable to conduct the landing operation, and also they lost at least 3 of the big landing ships, so they have nothing to conduct this operation with. Plus, without the air defense, all of the remainings of their ships will be just destroyed, demolished. The only ship that was capable for the proper air defense was a Moscow flagship, which is now lying on the seafloor. What separates now the Russian army from Odessa is the Dnipro River, so they need to cross the Dnipro River to go to the place. Well, actually they did it before in 2022. After crossing the river through Antonovsky Bridge, it was a big mistake by Ukraine not kaputting this bridge for the Russian army, so they were able to occupy Kherson with no any battles. They were able to advance close to Mykolaiv. In Mykolaiv they had resistance and they continued their move further. So why did they advance to Voznesensk? Because actually it's the only way for them to get to Odessa. There is a single road with no major water obstacles. It goes from Voznesensk all to the south directly to Odessa. Well, there's the other road which goes from Mykolaiv, but here are lots of the water obstacles. We call them liman, so there are some sort of the lakes like that. It makes the advancement of the Russian army impossible from this part. Well, they also have so-called Transnistria, the occupied territory of Moldova, and they have their forces, but those are not enough to advance to this big city of Odessa. So from any sort of the logical perspective or unlogical perspective, I don't see how Russia occupies Odessa. For them, it is much easier to advance to Kharkiv, for example, it's very close to the border, and even to Kiev. It requires less efforts compared to Odessa. Odessa is crazy city from any sort of the perspective for the Russian army, even though it's very close to their positions, as you can see. The only thing that they can do is to continue shelling of this civilian city, nothing more. I see just a single variant for Russia to occupy Odessa. It is the total collapse of Ukraine, I mean government and the country itself, plus total chaos within Ukrainian society. And I think that Russia probably tries to reach this goal through their propaganda, not through the Russian media, because Ukrainians do not watch them, but they have their agents in Ukraine. Yeah, I'm not telling you that the Ukrainian government is perfect. No, it's not even close to be perfect. But Russia tries to exaggerate the mistakes and those vulnerable spots which could break Ukrainian society into several of the parts. And I think that they are succeeding in that more compared to what they do on the front lines. Unfortunately for us, that is why I consider this job that I do on internet is very important, as well as the job of other pro-Ukrainian YouTubers. Also, Russian bots told me in the comments that they occupied Robotyne. Let's see the update for today. It was yesterday, it is today, just a light advancement of the gray area. And yes, indeed, Russia sometimes goes to the southern area of Robotyne, but immediately goes back again to their positions because Ukraine is able to respond. I know it from the first hand because there are some of our mates, our soldiers, who are sharing this information. Robotyne on the Russian maps looks like that. I'm actually very surprised how our defenders defend the settlement of Robotyne. But Russia was capable to advance near Urozhaine, so let's go to the timeline. It was yesterday, let's zoom into the place, and it is today. So they crossed this river from this side. Now they have the south vector, not yet in the village, but very close to it. I think that the fighting is already ongoing on the southern part of Urozhaine. Staromayorsk and Urozhaine were liberated during the summer campaign of Ukrainian counteroffensive action, which had just a limited success and didn't reach the major goal. And now let's go to Krinky. Here you see that this territory is still under Ukrainian control. However, Michael 73 gives the other picture. He shows that Krinky was occupied by Russian forces again. Honestly, I do not have the proof for that information that Ukrainian army left Krinky. So far, it's just the single source of this information. We'll see if it is correct or not. The question for me still is, what was the purpose of this Ukrainian assault towards Krinky? Yes, this operation was quite successful. Our guys caused Russians severe losses, but in a long-term perspective, Ukraine also had losses. And finally, if this information is correct, what was the reason generally to assault across the Dnieper River? Maybe, just my thought, is to deflect the attention of the Russian army from the other on the front lines and also cause losses. There was no any intention, probably from the Ukrainian command, to advance, for example, to Aleshki Desert, cutting the Russian army in some certain way or even cut their supplies. There was the chance, but Russian resistance was kind of the strong here. One more hotspot on the front lines is near the Chansev Yar, and here we can see a very narrow Russian advancement vector. They go from Ivanovsk, and Ukraine unfortunately has no any resources to cut them in this sector. And according to the latest information, Russia advanced even more, reaching this river. We can see it on this military map. Well, can potentially they go to the other side of the river? Well, from terrain perspective, it is quite difficult because you can see that there is a valley. Ukraine holds the higher ground in a place. So for Russia, it will be very difficult task. But they still may assault towards the nearby forest and also take this road for the further advancement. Russian soldiers started to use the electrical scooters to be more mobile. The thing is that it is quite difficult to ride those scooters. If you release one hand, the moment is not enough for the scooter to be stabilized vertically because of the small wheel, so you definitely need to keep both of the hands on the steering wheel all the time. Plus the wheels are tiny, not good for the off-road, and also the speed of those scooters is not that high compared to motorcycle, for example. I mean those particular scooters because there are some of the modes where you can ride with 100 kilometers an hour, but not here. The political source tells us that Russia now has problems with oil refineries and basically fuel in the Russian Federation. Russia is now negotiating with its neighbors like Belarus and Kazakhstan to import the fuel to the Russian Federation. For this reason, Ukraine should continue the strikes on the Russian oil facilities. Those are the most effective sanctions against the Russian oil and fuel. Donald Trump again stated that if he becomes the next United States president, he would halt the military support for Ukraine if Europe would stay at the same level of the military support. He says that it's up to Europe to help Ukraine more, but actually Europe helps Ukraine a lot. Maybe Donald Trump is searching for the excuses to stop the military support for Ukraine. In case he gets elected, hopefully it wouldn't happen like that. A photo of the debris of the Russian Mi-8 helicopter was shared in internet today. It is hard to tell where and when the photo was taken. Well, not during the winter time for sure, and those debris were delivered somewhere. It's not the crash site. and those woods were used for transportation. The Ukrainian Air Force spokesman said that Ukraine is ready to accept F-16s. It built the separate hangars or underground facilities to store F-16s safely. Hopefully it is like that, because Russia is definitely capable to strike deep into Ukrainian territory. Their latest attack was on Dnipro airfield. My friends, now please don't forget to press your like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And also I wish you a peaceful sky, as usual, wherever you are, and have a great time.